Hello friends, today I take up a new topic and the name of this topic is Was Ashoka responsible for the downfall of the Mauryan Empire? Was Emperor Ashoka or Ashok was responsible for the downfall of the Mauryan Empire? Friends, as you know that in 321 BC, Chandragupta Maurya established the Mauryan Empire in the Gangetic belt, and his capital was at Patliputra, the modern day Patna, the capital of Bihar. Patliputra was the epicenter of political activities for 1000 years. So what we see that was Emperor Ashoka was responsible for the downfall of Mauryan Empire. Friends, as you know that in 185 BC, the last Mauryan king Brihadat was killed by his own commander-chief Pushyamitra Shunga in the broad public view. Emperor Ashoka was the third Mauryan emperor. Chandragupta Maurya first, then Bindusar, and thereafter Emperor Ashok. He ascended the throne in 269 BC and continued to rule for around 40 years and died in 232 BC. So most of the information of his childhood, early days, we are dependent upon the Buddhist sources. These Buddhist sources, literary sources like the Deepavans, Mahavans, which were created in Sri Lanka by the Theravada school of Buddhism. After a long gap of 200-300 years later on, and so in northern Indian tradition, Ashok Vadan and different Buddhist texts throw light upon the early days of Emperor Ashok. But we should not rely too much upon these literary sources because they are not too much trustworthy. They are very much in legendary character nature. So now the question is why I have taken up this topic. You might be knowing that one ex-IS officer, D.P. Sinha, equated Emperor Ashok with Aurangzeb. That like Aurangzeb, Emperor Ashok also ascended the throne of Magad by killing his brothers, by arresting his father Bindusar. But the semblance of equation between Emperor Ashok and Aurangzeb isn't there. Why? I will narrate one by one. Friends, as you know, an FIR was lodged against Mr. Sinha under section 295, 295A and 505 and then 506 of IPC accusing him the deliberate and malicious act intended to outrage religious belief, feelings of class by insulting its religious feeling, and a statement conducting public mischief, and section 506 criminal intimidation. So accusation against DP Sinha is that he equated Emperor Ashoka with Aurangzeb, and like Aurangzeb, Emperor Ashok killed his brothers and put his father into jail to get the throne. So this kind of semblance is arbitrary. I will discuss in detail and will give the detailed reason as to why no equation can be made between Emperor Ashoka and Aurangzeb. So my lesson plan today includes introduction, different causes attributed by different historians, and then after I will discuss the reason for not equating with Aurangzeb, and finally conclusion. So what if now under the heading of introduction, what you see? Emperor Ashoka brought political unity of India, except far south, today's Tamil Nadu and Kerala. The Mauryan Empire extended in the north up to Hindu Kush mountain, and then in the east to Chittagaon. So you can see that it was a vast empire, and the first time the political unification was done by Emperor Ashok. Similarly, during the period of Aurangzeb, what we see that the extent of Mughal Empire reached at its zenith, even greater than that of Akbar, because during the period of Aurangzeb, Golconda, Bijapur, these Shia states were also annexed. Assam, earlier it was called Aham, it was also annexed, and so in terms of vastness, the Mughal Empire reached at its zenith during the period of Aurangzeb. Now, what we see that Ashoka followed a tolerant religious policy. Why I am telling this? Because you see, after the Kalinga War, which took place in 261 BC, Emperor Ashok felt remorse. Why? Because according to the Rock Edict 13, more than 1 lakh people were killed, 1,50,000 people were deported, and many more were perished. The bloody war between Magad and Kalinga very much disturbed the conscience of Emperor Ashok, and so he renounced war. He renounced Bheri Ghosh and then adopted Dham Ghosh. So he promulgated Dham, although Ashok adopted Buddhism as his personal religion. This point is very much corroborated by Bhabru Edict. So there is no question about the personal religion of Emperor Ashok. He became Buddhist. But the point is that he did not foist his personal religion upon others. Different sources tells us that he convened the third Buddhist council at Patliputra. Mogaliput Tisa was the president of that assembly, where the differences between the different groups of or schism in Buddhism were discussed and sorted out the differences between the different sects that had originated in Buddhism. So there is no doubt at all that Ashok, the Emperor Ashok, had a missionary zeal, and he sent missionaries to Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Southeast Asia and Central Asia for the propagation of Buddhism. But he did not, as I have told you, that he did not foist his Buddhism faith on his subject. And here is the difference between Emperor Ashok and Aurangzeb. Why I am telling this? Because Aurangzeb wanted to convert India from Darul Harb to Darul Islam, an Islamic country. Similarly, he imposed jizya on Hindus, and 2.5% was collected from Hindu population, Hindu subjects. What does the jizya means? That in Islamic world, those who are not Muslims, they are called dhimmis or jimmis. And in order to protect them, the Muslim rulers in Arab world collected a kind of protection tax from them that was called jizya. So Aurangzeb reversed the policy of Akbar. Akbar abolished jizya in 1564, but Aurangzeb reversed this policy, and now what you see, that Hindus were rated as second-class citizens. Similarly, on the economic front, 5% toll tax was to be collected from Hindus. Earlier, Muslims were completely exempted from toll tax, but later on, when mischief by Muslim traders were detected, then the toll tax was fixed at half of the, 2.5% of the tax. So what you see? Similarly, he destroyed temples in Orissa, in Mewar. Hundreds of temples were abolished in Mewar, Marwar, Vishwanath temple at Varanasi, Kesara temple at Mathura, Somnath temple in Gujarat. All these temples were destroyed by Aurangzeb, not only against Hindus but against Shia also. Friends, as you know, that both the states of Golconda and Bijapur were Shia state, and so Aurangzeb annexed these states in 1686 and 1687. So not only against Shias, but Sikhs were also very much tortured. The ninth Guru, Sikh Guru, Guru Tegh Bahadur, was executed. The fault was that he just protested the manner by which the Hindus in Jammu, in Kashmir, were being converted by Muslim governors. So he just wanted to lodge protest before Aurangzeb, and the result was his execution. Similarly, Guru Gobind Singh, his 4 sons were killed. Guru Gobind Singh himself was assassinated in Nanded. So what we see? Jats were tortured. Gokla Jat and his son Rajaram were killed. Similarly, Satnamis were very much harassed. Thousands of Satnamis were killed. Similarly, Marathas, Sambhaji, in 1689, Sambhaji was killed. He was given the option either to choose Islam or to face death. And Sambhaji, the son of great Shivaji, accepted death. So Aurangzeb could not visualize the true nature of Maratha agitation, Maratha Swaraj, and that's why his Deccan policy thoroughly failed. One by one, because of his orthodox policy, because of his religious bigotry, one by one he alienated different class, different groups of the society, and thereby hastened the downfall of Mughal Empire. So what we see, when we compare with Emperor Ashok, what we see? That after Kalinga War, he became Buddhist, but he did not foist his personal religion upon his subjects. He just promulgated Dhamma. And what was the gist of this Dham policy? It was based upon tolerance. It wanted stability in the society, because, friends, you know that in the Mauryan Empire, people were residing at different level of social and economic development. There were large chunk of tribal people, and so there was always imminent danger of revolt in the far-flung areas. And so Ashok adopted this policy of Dhamma so that a conciliatory efforts should be adopted among his subjects, and there should be minimum revolt or violence in the society. Not only that, he made gift to non-Buddhist and even anti-Buddhist sect. Friends, as you know, in the second Rock Edict, he exhorts his subjects to respect Brahmanas, Sramanas. Sramanas means those who are Buddhist, Jain or Nirgranthas or other sects, having other sects. So, promoted cultural interaction between developed Gangetic basin and distant backward provinces. So, adopted policy of peace, non-aggression and cultural conquest. I have already told you that he sent missionaries to far-flung areas, even up to Egypt, the present-day Egypt, Syria. So sent these missionaries to propagate Buddhism, adopted Dhamma, but it was not a sectarian faith, emphasized compassion towards animals and proper behavior towards relative. He laid stress upon the stability of family, respect towards elders, These were the important features of the policy of Dham, and so it cannot be categorized under any sectarian faith. Now, although the policy of Dhamma did not last after him, and you know that his viceroys declared independence just after the 30 years of his death, even the northeastern tribes like Indo-Greeks, these hordes of tribes entered into India and attacked upon India and captured large chunk of Indian territory around the Indus River. And as you might be knowing that the first king of Indo-Greek king was Menander, who later became Buddhist. So what we see, that we do not see any impact in the northwestern frontier or in Central Asia as far as the propagation of Buddhism was concerned. So of late there were huge number of Buddhists in Central Asia before the rise of Islam. Still in China, Japan, South Korea, huge majority of people are Buddhist, and the Buddhism in those countries and Southeast Asia like Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, these states combined together to make the fourth largest religion. The Buddhism is now the fourth largest religion in the world, having the number of faithfuls around 55 crore. So now, what are the causes for the downfall of Mauryan Empire, and how far Emperor Ashok was responsible for that? Number one, Brahminical reaction. Dr. Harprasad Shastri stated that it was the Brahminical reaction against the Mauryan Empire that led to the downfall of Mauryan Empire. Why? And Ashoka was responsible for that. Why he is telling? Because Harprasad Shastri states that when Emperor Ashok promulgated the policy of Vyavhar Samta and Dand Samta, that means in matter relating to criminal laws and civil laws, everybody is equal. So these rules very much infuriated Brahmanas, because Brahmanas or Brahmins wanted or had special privileges in the society. Once these rules of Vyavhar Samta and Dand Samta were promulgated in the society, the privileges of Brahmanas were cut off. And so, in retaliation, they overthrew the Mauryan dynasty. And the commander-in-chief of the Mauryan army, Pushyamitra Sung, was a Brahmin from central India, Vidisha, earlier it was called Bhilsa. So, what we see, that because of this Brahminical reaction, Mauryan Empire fell down. But secondly, in the support of their argument, they contends that after the downfall of Mauryan Empire, many Brahminical kingdoms arose, like Sung dynasty, like Kanva dynasty in central India, and the kingdom of Satavahan in the western Deccan and Andhra areas. they were all Brahmins. So they started Vedic sacrifices and established privileges for or bestowed privileges to Brahmanas. Now, these views are not accepted by majority of scholars because no proof for the ill treatment of Brahmins are available to us. On the contrary, Emperor Ashok exhorts his people, as I have told you, to respect Brahmins and Sramanas. Brahmanas and Sramanas. Sramanas means Buddhist, Jainas or other Ajivikas. So the appointment of Pushyamitra Shunga is itself a proof that Mauryan emperors did not adopt discriminatory policy. And so no evidence of a popular revolt by Brahmanas is available in the literary sources. Next, decline of Buddhism. Decline of Buddhism may be the cause for the rise of Brahminical dynasty in the different parts of the country. Next important argument is the policy of non-violence by Emperor Ashoka was responsible for the downfall of Mauryan dynasty. And H.C. Rai Chaudhary, not S.C., H.C. historian H.C. Rai Chaudhary contends that military weakness of Mauryas made them incapable to face the aggression from the northwestern front. As friends, as you know, that after the downfall of Mauryan Empire, hordes of invaders entered into India, like Indo-Greeks, then Scythians, Parthians, Kusans. These invaders entered into India at different point of time, and they reached as far as modern day Bihar, particularly Kusanas. So what we see, because of the abandonment of violence, Ashoka reduced the martial spirit of the soldiers. Next, shaped up the morale of soldiers, because soldiers were sitting idle, doing nothing. They had no work at all, and so their winning capacity started declining, and fixing total responsibility upon the governors of provinces further led to the rebellions, because these governors committed oppression, harassment to their subjects. And we have proof about it, because during the period of Bindusar, what we see, that a revolt took place at Taxila, which was the capital of the western part of Mauryan Empire. During the Mauryan period, there were 4 provincial capitals. The Taxila was the capital of western part, Ujjain was the capital for western part, Taxila was the capital of the northern provinces, northern part, and Ujjain was the capital of western part. Suvarnagiri in Karnataka was capital for southern part of Mauryan territory, and Tosali, somewhere in Orissa, was the capital for eastern part of the territory. And in addition, Patliputra also looked after the vicinity, the areas which were in the vicinity of Magadh or the Patliputra. So there are five provincial government working under Mauryaas. Now what you see, led to the revolt, and but these views were not accepted by the majority of historians. Why? According to R.S. Sharma, an authority on ancient India, it is wrong to think that Kalinga War caused the Emperor Ashoka to become an extreme pacifist. Ashoka did not pursue the policy of peace for the sake of peace under all circumstances. Not returned Kalinga after the Kalinga War, after getting remorse, after adopting the Dhamma Ghosh and incorporated into the empire. Instead, Kalinga was incorporated into the empire, and similarly did not disband a huge army that he bequeathed from Chandragupta Maurya or Bindusar, and similarly he appointed Rajukaj, Dhammahamatras, to punish those who are guilty of any offense. So what we see, that so he cannot be regarded as responsible for the decline of Mauryan Empire. Now another point is put forth, and that is financial crisis. By appointing so many officers by Emperor Ashoka, it shaped the financial capacity of Mauryan Empire. As you know, Mauryan Empire had vast bureaucracy. It had very vast central government apparatus, and so Mauryans increased tax after tax, and this cost dearly to the majority of people. Similarly, the expenditure of state started growing, and that was the weight of these taxation was so much heavy that it led to the decline of Mauryan Empire. And this theory of financial crisis has been put forward by eminent historian D.D. Kosambi. Now what we see, that this view is also not accepted by all historians. According to Romila Thapar, the Mauryan depended on the efficiency of the centralized bureaucracy and centralized government, and so once its loyalty became dubious, suspect, because of the weak successors, the empire started falling down like a pack of cards. So in such a setup, it is personal capacity of the king and the emperor that is a final deciding factor. So what we see, another important point put forth by eminent historian R.K. Mukherjee, and he said that weak successor, the spirit of local autonomy, lack of communication, oppressive rule by local chiefs, palace intrigues and treachery by some officials, the division of empire between different claimants, and according to literary source, we know that after Emperor Ashoka, his empire was partitioned between Kunal and Dasrath. Some said that a portion was also given to Jaluk. So what we see, that partitioning of empire into different claimants, all these factors combined together were responsible for the downfall of Mauryan Empire. Emperor Ashoka was not solely responsible for its decline. He was partly responsible for, because the vast number of bureaucracy and then vast number of military could not be sustained by increasing taxes after taxes, and so it sapped the vitality of the financial strength of Mauryan Empire, and that led to the decline of this great empire of India. So, according to R.S. Sharma, an eminent historian, what were the main cause for the decline of Mauryan Empire? He said that Magad owed its preeminence because of certain material culture. These material cultures were the use of elephant in warfare and in transportation, the use of iron for agriculture purposes and for warfare also, and similarly the metallic coins, the use of metallic coins in Magadhan areas, that led to the increase in trade and commerce and surplus of production. These were certain important material culture that gave preeminence to Magad. Now these material culture is spread to different part of the country, like in the Western India, in the Southern India, particularly Deccan, in the Eastern Bengal, Northern Bengal, and all in the Central India. So all these centers of India now started carving out separate principalities for themselves, and this factor led to the decreasing importance of Magad, and that's why the decline and downfall of Mauryan Empire set in. Conclusion. Now friends, what are the conclusion that we can draw? Number one, Ashoka was partly responsible for the downfall of Mauryan Empire. Number one, he cannot be held solely responsible. Number two, the downfall came after 50 years after his death, and the mishandling of the state of affairs by his weak successors, by the partition of his empire among different claimants, and the spread of material culture in different parts of the country led to the creation of separate or independent separate principalities or kingdom in India. These were the factors that led to the decline of Mauryan Empire. So friends, it is arbitrary to equate Emperor Ashok with Aurangzeb. Ashoka did not pursue the policy of religious bigotry after Kalinga War. He said in one of his rock edicts that as he cares for the betterment of his children in this world and out of this world, so likewise he cares for the betterment of his subjects. So he wanted to have personal bonding with his subjects, a paternal love that he wanted to bestow among his subjects. And in contrast, what we see in case of Aurangzeb, Aurangzeb wanted to establish or to convert India from Darul Harb to Darul Islam. The execution of Guru Tej Bahadur Sapru was done by the order of Aurangzeb, and he was given the option whether to choose Islam or life, and Guru accepted death. So what is he? In the case of Sambhaji, he was also given the choice. When he was captured by Mughal army, he was given the choice whether to accept Islam or death. Sambhaji accepted death, but he did not accept Islam. So, in the religious policy or the mental psyche of Aurangzeb was completely one of religious bigotry, very much harmful or deleterious for the future polity of India. And that's why it is wrong to equate Emperor Ashoka, the great Emperor Ashoka, with the religious bigot Aurangzeb. Students, if you like my lecture, please share and subscribe. Please tell your friends that this is a free channel. You can just subscribe. Just write down AJIS Academy on YouTube and open the playlist. You will find numerous videos that are meant for different competitive examinations, particularly UPSC and state civil services. So stay fit. Thank you very much.